Has this ever happened to you? You normal summon a guy, so in this case, mayhaps for Lily, and then all of a sudden your opponent hits you with the infinite impermanence. Well, if this has ever happened to you, I have got the solution for you. So, uh, infinite impermanence, notably, cannot be dealt with as easily as, for example, Ash Blossom Joe Spring. So with Ash Blossom Joe Spring, typically, most decks run Called by the Grave and Crossroad Designator. If we open any of those three, that will deal with Ash Blossom Joe Spring. And Ash Blossom Joe Spring is also punishable if we use, for example, a Triple Tactics talent or perhaps a Thrust. So we could thrust for like Karma Cannon, which is fine, or we can instead then go Triple Tactics talent to draw two. We can look at our opponent's hand, and then our opponent is playing on significantly less cards than us, and we might even be able to do a little bit more. Depends exactly, right? But Infinite Impermanence, this is also uh, better than Ash Blossom Joe Spring in a few more regards. So first off, hard ones return. There is not a single hard ones return on this card, of course. So you can activate 3 Infinite Impermanence and only 1 Ash Blossom Joe Spring. Infinite Impermanence is not a monster effect, so Triple Tactics Talents and Thrust are not activatable and will be dead in hand if you get hit by Imperm. So let's say, for example, we have Lily, some hand traps, something that's like dead, like maybe a second Lily. We have Thrust and Talents, so it's fine if we get like Ashed or Maxed or something because we can activate like Talents and Thrust. But in this case, we get hit by Imperm, our entire hand is dead, there is no play, right? Or we could even have like Called by Crossout as well, for example, and then we'd still be able to activate Talents and Thrust, right? But we get hit by Imperm. Big Depression. We have no response, can't really do anything, right? So, alright. What can we do about infinite impermanence? Well, infinite impermanence does require you to control something first. So, if before we do our play, we hit our opponent up with the prohibition, then, prohibition declare infinite impermanence, our opponent can no longer imperm us. Another idea here, if we go ahead and read this, then if this card was set before, no, wait. Target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and then if you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. So, an idea we have here, of course, we can do, like, the adventure stuff, so we can use, like, Rite of Aramis here, and then go into Dracoback, and that's one way. And the token is just a token, it's just a guy. But if we want to be really disgusting, what we can do if we give up our normal summon is we can normal summon Nightmare Corruptor Iblee, link off Iblee for something. Depending on exactly what type of deck you're playing, the options might change, but let's assume we're playing either Synchro, Xyz, or Fusion, and we normal summon Iblee, okay? If we are doing one of those 3 types and not Link, this gives us the option of Almirage. So we can just simply link off with Almirage, so normal summon Iblee, link off with Almirage, and at no point in time right now is there going to be something our opponent can imperm, so we're going to then give our opponent Iblee. And Iblee's effect is you cannot special summon monsters except for link monsters, so that's a continuous effect. If this card and its owner's control is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card to your opponent's field in defense position. So our opponent cannot Almirage off Iblee. They would need like a Lingrevo specifically, or I guess like be playing a Cyber stack that plays some other Link ones. Iblee can be linked off for a surprising amount of things. But yeah, in general, most people will not have a way to deal with Iblee here. And if we specifically link off with Almirage, then something a little bit interesting happens. So, did you guys know that if a 0-attack monster attacks into a 0-attack monster, it does literally nothing? Neither are destroyed by that battle, because they have 0 attack, I guess. And in this case, that means our opponent cannot just go battle and then crash into Almirage with their Iblee. So they can't do that. And you cannot crash into defense position monsters. So that's why if we're playing specifically a Fusion, XYZ, or Synchro deck, we can summon all of our extra deck monsters and our boss monsters into defense position if we, assuming we play no link monsters, and then our opponent just gets cooked by the Iblee, right? And there shouldn't be much that they can do. I mean, if you're psychopathic enough, I suppose you could do something like Nightmare Unicorn to spin back itself, just to remove cards from field, but I mean, of course there's a risk with everything. Aside from that, we also have the option of just straight up linking off for Langribo, which also has its merits. If we link off Iblee for Langribo, even if our opponent can crash into the Langribo here, we can negate Imperm if our opponent has it with Langribo, and if our opponent has evenly matched, they also can't use it, which is another upside of Iblee. So if we Iblee our opponent and they control Iblee, they cannot evenly match us, right? So we should have pretty free lethal on turn 3, even if they have evenly matched, for example, and they set it and we have no way to remove or negate evenly. Our opponent is probably dead on turn 3, so it wouldn't matter. Still would have to finally deal with any copies of Infinite Impermanence our opponent might have on turn 3, however, which could be a bit annoying. But in general, we're just going to be fine. And now, let's pull up with a few more options, I suppose. If we're playing Dino, for example, though, we do have some options for Imperm. So we have idea of Lost World, so Lost World works, right? If we Lost World, normal summon any dinosaur, our opponent will now control a Druid token, which means they control a monster or card, not allowing them to Imperm us. If we were to activate Misk, this will prevent our dinosaurs from being negated, specifically any of their activated effects. Or, no, wait, they're unaffected by your opponent's activated effects, sorry. I was thinking of Psychic and Punisher there for a bit, but yeah. This is one way to just kind of just eat Imperm and just kind of be chilling. And Dino in particular is one of the best decks that with dealing with like certain hand traps. So Imperm is much less effective than Ash Blossom Joy Spring. So for example, with Ash Blossom Joy Spring, we can still negate Miscellaneousaurus's graveyard effect. Just, something we can do. But against Imperm, there's really not, well, if we have Imperm, there's really nothing we can do if our opponent has Misk. So we just kind of have to YOLO it, or we can use this in standby phase next turn to try to negate something. But Dino's put up a lot of negates, so it's probably not going to amount to anything like a single copy of Imperm against Dino, right? So other options. If we go back to what I was saying earlier, the very first line here, target one face-up monster your opponent controls. So because it has to target one face-up monster your opponent controls, this gives us the option of Sauravis. So I can't spell this still, but okay. What Sauravis does is it allows us to not non-hard once per turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a monster you control, quick effect, you can discard this card to negate the activation. So if we do this, we can just send Sauravis the Ancient and ascend it to the graveyard, and then we're chilling. This just negates Imperm. It trades 1-for-1 like Called By or whatever. Like Called By Ash, they trade 1-for-1, so it's chill, I guess. And surprisingly, there's still more options to deal with infinite impermanence. So another idea here, a little bit different from the last one, is Book of Moon. So this is not usable for with all decks, but if we were to, let's say, normal summon, let's go with a Luber. If we were to normal summon a Luber, and then our opponent hits us with the imperm, what we can do is Book of Moon a Luber. And what happens here is pretty interesting. So it's not the fact that you can't target a Luber here. So if we Effect Valor, nothing changes, right? So it is quite simply that cards that are face down cannot be negated. Specifically, their effects cannot be negated by effects like this, right? So you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one effect monster your opponent controls, negate the effects of that face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. Face-up monster, so that's his face-up already on the card text. And this one, target one face-up, negate its effects until the end of this turn. Then if this card was set before activation and is on the field at resolution for the rest of this turn, all other spell trap effects in this column are negated. So Effect Valor specifically already says it only negates face-up cards, but that doesn't actually matter because you can't negate face-down monsters with effects like this, right? So, despite Infinite Impermanence not saying face-up on the effect portion in the same way that Effect Valor does, you can't actually negate a face-down monster. So, not a whole lot you can do about this. So, if we were to, for example, let's say normal summon a Luber, chain 2, Effect Valor, chain 3, Book of Moon, targeting a Luber, chain 4, Effect Valor, targeting a Luber, chain 4, or chain 5, Effect Valor on a Luber again, chain 6, Infinite Impermanence also on a Luber, Luber will resolve on chain link 1. You could chain literally Infinite Impermanence 1,000 times, the outcome will be the same. And a niche application of this is if we use this card, Supreme King Zark, and then we summon it off of Soul of the Supreme King. So specifically here, pay half of your life points, special summon a Supreme King Zark from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, but negate its effects. If we use this to special summon Supreme King Zark has this interesting line of text. This card is special summon, destroy all cards your opponent controls, cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, whatever. So if this card is special summoned, you can use this effect. It will be negated, but you can still activate the effect. So then what we can do is Soul the Supreme King, summon Zark, Zark chain 1, chain 2, Book of Moon, target Zark. In this case, what happens is the effect to destroy all cards your opponent controls actually does resolve, despite this supposedly being negated. This won't work with certain other effects, like I believe Bulky Fibrax actually might say some different text. But cards that, for example, would say you cannot activate the effect of the card, that would change things. And also more specific negates, like, for example, if we have Ash Blossom Joy Spring, if we have Gamma, if we have, let's say, Baron, Regulus, Book of Moon doesn't actually prevent any of these guys from negating your monster's effects, so let's just assume we do normal summon Aluber. So chain 1 Aluber, chain 2 Regulus, chain 3 Book of Moon, target Aluber. This doesn't work. And in this case, your Aluber will not resolve. The effect will indeed be negated by Regulus. So this would be a crazy read, honestly. Just imagine this. Activate Soul of the Supreme King. We allow this for whatever reason. And then we have a monster negate, so let's say a Crystal Wing or something. And we see, like, our opponent has a set card, so we go, like, chain 1, Zark, chain 2, Crystal Wing. And then our opponent, if they chain 3, like, Book of Moon, our whole board doesn't get wiped. So that'd be funny if you could predict that, honestly. But yeah, this is every single way I could think of to reasonably deal with infinite impermanence, and to a lesser extent, effect failure. But if we're just dealing with effect failure, this adds the option of cult by mostly. You can still, of course, cross out infinite impermanence, but yeah, if you guys have any ways to deal with infinite impermanence that I might have missed, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.